Show and tells and sprint iteration reviews. Essentially, same thing. You're going to hear it called a couple different ways, as with everything around the Scrum and iterative world. There are some different naming and nomenclatures for this, but in terms of Scrum, we're going to talk about it as being the show and tell. So the show and tell is a mini UAT of software for customers. This is sitting down at the end of a sprint and sitting down with your stakeholders, sitting down with the team. The product owner is typically driving the show and tell, and that product owner is talking about, here are all of the stories that we took into this iteration. Here's all the work that happened. And in a lot of cases, what I've seen a lot of teams do is the team is online to answer questions, but early on, the product owner may be new enough to their role that they're not able to demo these things, or maybe some of the stories have enough different technical issues in them that they're not comfortable with demoing those right away. So the team members may be going in and demoing their own work. A lot of times people like to have software development team members do the demoing because they like to have people show off their work, talk to people, get the customers and the stakeholders and the people that are attending the show and tell to be able to hear and kind of get the feeling for this development team that's kind of invisible behind this work. But for the most part, in a more mature situation, the product owner eventually wants to kind of take over that ownership of that show and tell, and to be able to drive and show that they understand the value of these things. They understand how they work. They understand how they interact with everything else. So it's usually that the delivery team and the product owner both kind of co-sharing the presentation of what it is they finished in the last sprint, in the last iteration, for their customers and stakeholders. As I said here, developers usually drive, and it depends on what that is. But that's again, that is one of the things that's great about Scrum, is that there's a framework to start out with that you start using that helps you to get going. And then you take a lot of your culture and what it is you do and what your company does and the space you're in, and you drive that in. As long as you're sticking to the values and principles of Agile, and you're doing the things in the framework that keep you working in a very agile way and keep you kind of true to the agile mindset, then you're doing the right things. So there is a little bit of flex and play in that when you get a little bit down the road, but in the beginning, like we said, developers will typically drive. The team gets to hear the customer's feedback. That's really important. The product owner gets to interact most likely with the customer more often, but you don't want the separation that traditionally used to happen with software and IT and the technical people kind of over in one area, and all the business folks with the mindsets and the connections to the users and everything else around the value and the why behind what it is that's being delivered sits on this side. And having that, I know myself early on in my career, that separation was there. And when we tried Scrum for the first time, it did not work well because we kept missing the mark. We didn't have any interaction with our customers. We didn't have anything. In fact, we had very little interaction with our product owner who was interacting with the customers, but was not allowing us to either feed off of that or to interact with them ourselves. So it's very good to have the customers hear and see what's going on with the development group, see the interaction between the product owner and the development team, kind of get how that whole thing works. Because then they start to learn and understand what it takes to take a piece of features that they ask for, what it takes to get it to become a reality, and what it takes to get it to come out the door. When they have an appreciation for that, you tend to be able to manage and set expectations a whole lot easier. The team can see the whole of the software. They stay in sync with what's going on. It's good that even though we're doing this in an iterative way, the risk of breaking things down into small chunks is that you lose purview of the whole. You can't see why all of this is being done. Why are we doing these 8 different things? Why do they come together? What's the value in these things coming together? So this whole continuous finding ways to on a regular routine basis to interact with the clients and the customers and the stakeholders whenever we can is really, really a good thing. Customers can prioritize changes immediately. So if something goes on and they come back and say that we developed something exactly to spec, and for some reason it either fit the bill and did exactly what they wanted, and they go, you know what, I don't know if this is going to actually achieve what it is that we want. Now, there's a whole other section that we talk about in in reviewing and refining stories. And the product owner works with clients on that, and then they also work with the team on that to try to minimize any of that happening. And Scrum typically does that, but it's still an opportunity to say, you know what, seeing this now, seeing you operate this the way you're operating it, I think that the next thing we should do shouldn't be the thing that we're talking about, but should be this other thing. And a lot of times that's the value add of being able to look at prioritizing the changes that would come next, really, really frequently. Very rarely with a well-working, well-functioning product owner, scrum master, and delivery team, when things are going well, when they're operating in a very true way to the agile mindset and all the framework elements, you very rarely get situations where you miss on a delivery. So that goes down dramatically. Very rarely does that happen. In fact, even if something happens mid-sprint and you can't quite get it the way you want, or something comes up, usually the mechanism is there that people communicate that out, so decisions are made prior to the show and tell. So people come to the show and tell, they understand what's going on. But it's about being able to change what comes next, which is kind of the same thing we talk about release planning. It's tying back into this planning and doing kind of really interwoven together as it moves down through time. So we also have accountability to the customer for satisfaction. So we know as a development team and as a product owner, we got to get in front of our stakeholders and our customers at the end of every single iteration and show them what we did. We're accountable. We talked about that in the daily stand-up and said, look, in the daily stand-up, we made a commitment to you. At the show and tell, guess what? We're showing you that we made the commitment. And we not only met it, but we maybe even exceeded it. And maybe we got a few extra stories done, or we did so well in some things, we were able to actually get that extra feature that you wanted 2 sprints down. We were able to pull that in. The product owner said that would be a great idea. So having that accountability is really important, and having this event keeps that accountability there on both sides. So this is show and tell at a very high level for Scrum.